We're going live to the internets in many
It always,
places.
I don't know about you, it always feels like a real victory when that works the way it's supposed to. Like I tried to do one yesterday for my son's school.
This meeting is being recorded.
Cool. Whoa. Yeah, because we'd scheduled it in advance. It was very, very hard to make it actually go live.
Cool. Well, welcome in, everyone. We are live. Technology is a trip. And, you know, like, I'm guessing a bunch of you work in digital, right? And you all know how weird this shit gets. Like, you're like, yeah, this should have worked just fine. And we should be in gallery view, and it's not broadcasting in gallery view. Okay, is what it is. Participants views, side-by-side gallery. What a trip. Anyways, welcome in. Technology is amazing. And those of you, I'm guessing most of you work in digital or digital adjacent, you know, it's just like, it's layers upon layers of things, and you hope that they all work together properly. And a bunch of time they don't. And that, like, I feel like a quarter of our jobs are like figuring out like why those two things that like have worked consistently for 3 years suddenly is broken. But with that, two people who are great at helping folks make things better, unbreak things. So we're here to talk about foundations of digital advertising for campaigns and nonprofits, an amazing new course Eileen and Claire have put together. Eileen and I have been doing trainings together for many years now, and I've been asking her, like, hey, could we put together maybe something that's more of a course and not just part of these other sessions we're doing? And she has said yes, so we finally hit on the thing, and we brought in Claire, who I also got to work with a couple of years ago and has been doing a bunch of amazing things. And I'm really excited to have you introduce themselves. And, you know, given we're a little bit past the hour, I'll come back and talk more about what the Center for Digital Strategy does at the end, but let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Eileen Paulette. I am the founder of Ravenna Strategies. I'm a digital consultant. I'm based in Seattle, Washington, and do work all over the country with candidates, PACs, nonprofits, advocacy organizations, from list building to voter contact, primarily ads. As you'll see, sometimes that flows into other parts of digital, but I mostly work in ads, and that's what we're really going to be focused on today and in the course that we're going to be doing. And I'll pass it over to Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Darby. I am the owner of Claire Darby Digital Strategies. So I've been running digital ad campaigns for nonprofits and unions and foundations and campaigns for, I guess, 8 or 9 years now. These days, Claire Darby Digital Strategies kind of looks a little bit more holistically at like big picture digital strategy. So not just ads, but ads is and always will be my very favorite part of all of these campaigns. So I was really excited to get a chance to come and talk about it.
And Claire and I worked together. Claire was my first boss at a digital firm in DC when I moved to DC back in the day, and taught me lots of the things that I know about digital. So we have a very shared view on how digital ads should work. So we're going to talk. Oops, okay, here we go. So we're going to just review the sessions that are going to be included in this course. And then at a couple of points, we're going to actually like give you some of the information that we're also going to give in the sessions. Hopefully, if you watch this and then you come into the course, you're going to have a really firm grounding in just like what are digital ads and what are some of the words we're going to use, because there are a lot of word salad in digital ads that don't always make sense to folks. So session 1, common terms and definitions. I'm going to go to the next slide and we're going to actually look at some of those. How ad marketplaces work. This is like the actual way that ads are bought. I think a lot of the times it feels like a black box. You put money in and people see ads, and explaining that actual process of how your money becomes an ad loading on someone's screen. An overview of ad platforms and when to use them. I think a lot of the times we are very familiar with social media, the platforms that we ourselves use, and we can really conceptualize how we would get an ad there. But there are a ton of other ways to run digital ads, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of a lot of those and the regulations on political advertising on those platforms. I think a lot of the time our decision making on where to run ads and what kinds of ads to run is dictated by the laws and regulations that these platforms have put in place. And if you've been hearing anything about Google or Facebook or Twitter especially, you'll know that these rules are changing all the time. So we have some tips on what to anticipate and also how to plan and be prepared for when these regulations change and which ones are the most reliable. And then what else can help you and your organization do with ads? How can ads play a part in your fundraising, list building, organization building part of your work? How can it help in your program work and running maybe like the C3 part of an organization? And then how can it help in the political work, voter contact, things like that? So we're going to have some examples about ways organizations have used ads across the organization. So first up, some terms.
So if you have run digital ads, or if you have ever interacted with anybody who runs digital ads, you probably know we really like jargon. And we really, really like acronyms, and it is not necessarily intuitive what that jargon means, what those acronyms stand for. So we just wanted to kind of unpack some of these terms because they're really important for understanding how to create a campaign that's going to work for you. So just up at the top, impressions. It's the number of times an ad was served. That's all it means.
And reach, this is the number of people who see your ads. I think a lot of time people get confused between impressions and reach and think, wow, I reached 300,000 people. No. That's probably the number of impressions you got. And the reach is a lot smaller than that because you want to reach people more than once. So this is the unique people who see your ad. Sometimes this actually won't even be unique people. It'll be unique devices. So one person might have a phone, a smart TV, a laptop, a work laptop, a tablet. Like one person may have up to 5 or 10 devices. So it's important to ask if somebody gives you a reach number, if it's unique people or unique devices.
Well, next up, frequency. So the number of times ads were served to a user. And if you come to our course, we talk a lot about frequency because it has an impact on, your audience's ability to retain a message, how to use your budget strategically. And I guess, generally, if you're getting a frequency number from a platform or from a vendor, they can't say with any certainty that everybody got this ad, exactly this number of times. This is an average. They're saying on average, people in this audience saw this ad X number of times. That's the frequency.
So clicks, I know this sounds simple, like clicks is the number of times an ad was clicked, but it's not that simple because on most social media platforms, clicks include things like if you clicked to see the comments, or if you clicked to go to someone's Facebook page, or if you clicked an ad and actually went to the website connected to the ad. So it's important to know if you're talking about all clicks or link clicks. And link clicks is a really common, important metric in digital ads that we use to gauge how good ad creative is, and how many people you're driving to your website.
Yeah. And I would just say, if you're working with a vendor, if you're working with a consultant or a firm, and they're doing reporting for you, you should ask them, just make sure that what they're reporting to you is link clicks, if that's the thing you're interested in, or all clicks, if that's the thing you're interested in, but just make sure you know what kind of clicks they're reporting. So the next one on here, VCR, which stands for video completion rate. This is the number of times your video was completed, the number of times it was finished being watched, divided by the number of times the ad was served. So it's just giving you a sense of like what percentage of the time when your ad was run, did somebody finish watching it?
And this next one, click-through rate, is very similar to video completion rate. It's what percentage of the time your ad was run did people click on it. And almost always this is a link click-through rate, but again, good to check if it's link clicks or all clicks. And again, both VCR and CTR are really great metrics for analyzing if your ad creative is engaging, if people want to learn more, or if it's maybe a little boring.
Okay, engagements, anybody who works in digital, we're probably familiar with this concept. It's the number of reactions, shares, clicks, and comments. I do want to say clicks is a little bit sticky because usually when we're thinking about engagement, we're thinking about those other things, right? We're thinking about reactions, we're thinking about comments, shares, retweets, whatever it is. But frequently clicks gets lumped into engagement also. And again, it's really important to look at clicks to what? Was it clicks to the landing page? Was it clicks on the picture in the ad? Like it can be a lot of things, and those can be less or more valuable depending on where that click went. So it's just good to pay attention to that as you're looking at engagements.
I'll just say that as a super valuable tip, like that alone, worth the price of the admission to the webinar today, which was a great deal. But I shit you not, I've run ads for years and I did not know that they were lumping clicks on a picture into clicks on the link, which is huge, right? Like,
also
randomly clicked somewhere near the ad versus actually clicking to the thing you're trying to convert. So, which is like, why? So, yeah, I guess maybe just quick question there. So I guess, damn it, no, click-through rate. I mean, it's click-through rate is actually better because that's only showing you going through to the thing. In general, that's a super valuable thing, but
link click-through rate. Like if we're talking meta, there's
let's get meta.
Yeah, if we're focused on Facebook, Instagram, it will say clicks, click-through rate, link clicks, link click-through rate. Yeah. So it's super important to always do the link click-through rate, unless you specify to a client, like maybe your ads, you do care about engagement. Maybe this is a campaign that's actually like education focused, like not just trying to drive action to your website. So it's worth noting if there were other kinds of engagements with your ad. One really similar important caveat to the engagement metrics in Facebook and Instagram is that if you are running a video, they will include video views as engagements. And those are not engagements. Like if you watch 3 seconds of my video, I don't want to count that as the same value, the same level of quality important metric to me as someone commenting or sharing it with their network. Like that is not the same. So really important to frankly just exclude video views from your engagement metrics.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy, right? Because like that's the baseline thing you were paying for, right?
Yeah.
Like we were paying to get views, and the other thing's actually a real engagement. That's super not helpful. But
yeah, and to that point, we don't need to get super in the weeds on this, but it's a reason to maybe think twice sometimes about doing an engagement campaign. It may not be the best move depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I just also want to say most platforms, if you're doing reporting, allow you to break this down by kind of engagement so you can see that.
Yeah. Something we'll get into in the course is like how to make sure if you're not running these ads yourself, how to make sure a vendor and agency you're working with is getting you those right metrics, and to look at the reports and see, are they kind of juicing the numbers by including maybe the video views in engagement metrics, or is it really the quality engagements? I think our next term here is cost per acquisition or cost per action, CPA. This is the cost of a new name or any kind of action to your organization. So usually this is used in the context of people trying to get signups or in fundraising, and this is the cost per new email address acquired. I put in here that the industry average is $2. I think that's outdated. It was for a long time $2, but these days I think people are quite more focused on quality over quantity. And if you're focused on quantity, you could probably get $2 names still. But if you're going to focus on quality, which we would recommend, it's going to be more than $2.
And I just add on to that, I've found in the nonprofit and campaign space, it varies wildly, depending on, the size of your audience, depending on the issue, depending on a lot of other factors that are not always at play in sort of a straight commercial corporate space. So there is a little bit of like, just know your audience and learn sort of how it responds, but it's also good to have that sort of standard in the back of your brain. All right, so next, return on ad spend, or ROI. I find this is a tricky one for nonprofits because we're not in the business of thinking about making money, right? We're not in the business of thinking about profit, but it's still an important, if you're going to make the case for using advertising in a digital strategy, you need to be able to show that it worked, that you got something for it. So ROI is this idea that the percentage of money you've earned back from your investment. So however you're going to value, an addition to your email address or I'm sorry, to your email list, or however you're going to value it, how do you show that the money you spent on ads got you something in return?
Next one here is CPM, or cost per 1,000 impressions. This is the unit we use to buy ads. So when someone says, if you want to buy ads, you're really buying 1,000 ads typically. And so the CPM maybe is somewhere between $8 or $15. And that is the price for 1,000 ads. So we're going to do, and we'll show you in like the future sessions that we're going to go over. We're going to do some media math where we really explain like how you would use CPM in a media plan, or to understand like what's a good CPM, what's a bad CPM.
All right, a DSP is a demand side platform. So it's a platform for buying programmatic ads. That usually means static ads or video ads that you're seeing on, sites that you're, as you're traveling around the internet. And Eileen's going to talk more about that on the next slide, but I'll hand it back to you for managed service.
Yeah, managed service is just another way to buy ads. And there's like a lot more. We didn't include all the terms here, but those are some of the two most common ways to buy ads, either hands on your own keyboard in a DSP buying, or working with a vendor who's doing that hands on the keyboard buying for you, which is managed service. All right, this slide looks very overwhelming. This is the life cycle of an ad, how a programmatic ad goes from you saying, I want to run an ad, to loading on someone's screen. I'm going to try and go through it fast and not too in depth because it's a lot of information. But the top line is, in 200 milliseconds, this all happens. So the first step in this process is that Jane Doe, our user, goes to a website. We'll say they're going to the New York Times. The New York Times is a publisher, just like many websites are, and they sell ads themselves. So you could call up the New York Times and say, I want to run ads to women in New York State between the ages of 20 and 40. And if Jane Doe happens to fit those parameters of a campaign that someone has called up the New York Times directly to run ads, then she will see that ad right away. This is like the first couple options, ways that someone can run an ad. If there's no ad campaign that's run direct to the New York Times, then this ad, see this, we're here now, we're at 40 milliseconds. If no campaign targets Jane Doe, the server, which is like where the ads load, seeks to match the impression programmatically. So that means that the rest of the world who have not called the New York Times directly and are using a DSP, who have set up a campaign targeting women in New York State between the ages of 20 and 40, they will all have the chance to bid on being the ad that loads for Jane Doe on the New York Times. So between this 40 and, oops, didn't mean to do that. Between 40 and 150 milliseconds, all the different people, Coca-Cola, you know, the campaign for governor, everybody is competing to see who's going to get to run that ad. And depending on how much you've prioritized a person like Jane Doe, a person who fits those demographics, maybe she's on a list of voters somebody wants to reach, maybe she's been a past donor to an organization, so they know that they want to reach her. Depending on how important she is to those advertisers, they're going to bid more money or less money. And a real-time auction happens. The winner gets to place their ad to Jane Doe. And so in these last 50 milliseconds, the ad gets, the winner is selected, the browser that she's using loads the ad and she sees it. And this all happens super fast. And if you're ever on a website and you think that the ads aren't loading quickly, or you notice that there's a delay, it's because the ad servers doing all of this, the technology is like glitching, it's taking a little bit of extra time. There's a lot happening behind the scenes for every single ad that loads on your screen. So that's a little insight into how ads work. And I'm going to pass it back to Claire to talk about what we'll discuss in session 2.
Yeah, so what we just went over is just sort of some of the stuff that we'll touch on in session 1 and session 2, making every dollar count, planning and budgeting. We're going to talk about how you read a media plan, and just for everybody's context, a media plan it's your blueprint for the campaign, right? It's where you're putting like what your budget is, where you're spending that money, who you're targeting with that money, what your objectives are. So what do you want the ads to do for you, all in one place. So we'll talk about how to read one. We'll talk about how to build an ads budget yourself, and some different approaches to what we'd call budget math, just to help you sort of think through how much money is it going to take for you to do what you need to do, or if you have a fixed amount of money, what is that going to get me? We'll talk about targeting. We're going to talk some more about understanding frequency and why it matters. And if you choose to participate in it, there will be a homework assignment.
Totally optional. Session 3 is going to be all about ad creative and content and production, and how to make the best ads, the ads that are going to be right for the platform that they're running on, for your audience. We're going to talk about testing, how to find out if your ads are effective. And last, we'll talk about landing pages, because they're very important.
All right, and then in session 4, how's it going? How to make it go better? Reporting and optimizing. So my favorite thing about digital is that you get so much feedback, right? There's so many places to learn how something is doing, and I think that's particularly true in ads. So we'll spend this session talking about how to understand ads reporting, if you're the one pulling it, or if you're getting it from a vendor or a consultant. You know, what even is all this? We'll talk about the KPIs, which again are the key performance indicators, the metrics that you want to be paying closest attention to, which ones matter, because again, lots of data. How do you know what data actually matters and which data you can kind of disregard? We'll talk about how to use your ad reporting. And by that, we mean, you know, if you come back with ads, you may say, oh, we really shouldn't be spending any more money on this thing that's not doing very well. Or you may say like, wow, this campaign's going amazing. We should try to get more money for this whole campaign. Or just to think through, like, what do you do once you've got this reporting, and how can it sort of impact your strategy? We'll talk about how to know if your ads are doing well. You know, if you've ever worked with a vendor, you may have had the experience of them sending you a spreadsheet with some numbers in it, and you're like, okay, like, that's not very helpful, right? It's good to know, like, is this good? Is this bad? Is it not? So we'll talk a little bit about like what is good, what's bad. And then we'll talk about optimizing. We'll talk about how you improve your ads performance, because there's almost always something you could be doing that would make those ads do better.
And then our last session will be open office hours. If you wanted to do the homework assignment, we'll review it with you. If you have a project at your organization or for your campaign, an ads project that you're working on, we'll discuss it with you. We can talk through some hypotheticals or answer any questions. So this will just be a better opportunity than each individual session, where we'll be covering a lot, to ask us questions and go back and forth on some stuff. And I know we're coming up really close to time, but I want to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Cool. And if you all have more time, we'll take the time. Yeah, folks want to throw out some questions if you've got them. I'm just going to say once again, I am super excited about this course. I know that running digital ads is hard. Like from my own experience, like I had a decent chunk of experience with digital ads. And when I was a digital director, we hired an outside firm because it was such a changing space all the time. And like, we couldn't manage it day to day. And I kind of wish I would have had some of these other insights, right? Like I would have been making even better strategic decisions, right? Like I knew, because I had a background, I was asking questions that other clients weren't asking, because sometimes I was getting a, oh, let me look into that sort of response from them, right? And so I think even if you're looking at this course and thinking, this actually sounds a little more overwhelming, like maybe we shouldn't run ads in-house, you should definitely then take it, right? Like if that seems like a lot, I think this will make it more effective, right? Because you'll be asking smarter questions. And when you're in team meetings, right? Like when you're in, I just think that's a big part of it too, is like that organizational reset of bringing ads into more strategic planning early on. And like that just being there. Got a question coming in here. I work at an impact first production company. We run marketing campaigns. We're interested in developing comprehensive dashboard to measure impact. Is that something that is covered in this class? And Brad, no knock to you. I'm always curious what people mean by dashboard. Like what exactly that's going to be. I was at one organization. Someone was like, we need a dashboard, and I had actually built like an interactive thing with Google Sites, and they're like, we just needed a document. I'm like, oh.
I'll just say we're not going to cover like how you would build a reporting dashboard. I know you, Brad, have done courses on Google Analytics, and there are other resources out there that are very specific to how you might convert marketing data into dashboards. What we are going to talk about is the important metrics that you should be tracking in your dashboards. If you want to understand like how ads are running and what metrics and optimizations you might want to be able to look for in a dashboard, like we'll definitely cover that. But the next step of actually building it out, we won't be covering.
Oh, someone said here, Google Analytics data support would be so helpful. Yeah, and we have a course specifically for that, because it is a beast unto itself. And like while it's married to Google Ads, they're not the same thing, right? Like they're actually. And
in my experience, if you're running a really multi-platform advertising campaign where you're working on multiple social media platforms, maybe you're running programmatic ads, Google Analytics certainly, but even like those kinds of dashboards are extremely hard to build because you're trying to pull in data from so many different sources, some of which don't allow you to pull much data. So we'll be talking about reporting for sure and some ways to do it and some things to look for. Yeah.
And I guess I'll just kind of multiple things. One, we're running our Google Analytics 4 course again in September. It's really how to get you on Google Analytics 4, but also like how to use it, because it's not the same. Like it is literally, if you had signed up for our course from a year and a half ago, like that's great. Some of the insights and stuff will still be similar, but the mechanics are actually different. And that's digital in a nutshell, digital and tech in a nutshell, right? Like, oh, this major platform we've all been using for years is like, no, that doesn't work anymore, and you have to use it this way. And someone asked, where do you normally build a dashboard? I mean, one thing I'll say is there are, and it sounds like maybe a future thing I should look at offering. There are paid advertising dashboards that you can pay for. I think none of them are cheap because they're geared towards marketers working on digital advertisings or big companies who are doing this, right? And so that like it's one of those spaces where they know people will spend a lot of money because and I think they have to pay a lot of money to get the data piped in, right? Like this is not a thing that Facebook or Google is saying like, hey, here's a cheap API. It's like, oh, you want that API? This is, I don't know what it costs, but I'm sure it ain't cheap. And someone says, where do you normally build a dashboard? Maybe Airtable. I think it's like almost endless, like where you could build a dashboard. You could actually build out really nice Google Sheets that like produce graphs and produce things for you. Or like I would say it's where you're comfortable too. Like that's just the one thing I always say with these things. And the like yes and is like what you're delivering to folks in your team should almost never be a spreadsheet unless you're walking them through what the hell this stuff means. I don't know if you all are planning including it, but at the very least, I can re-record and share with folks who might join the course. I have a really simple Google Slides presentation slide that I use, set of slides that I use, that's just visual. It's like, here's a picture of the ad, and here are the key metrics from it. Because folks who don't work in ads, like, right, like if we went back to that slide of all of those words, that like, yes, those were all in English of those definitions, but like none of them make sense unless you like, right? Like it took
yeah,
half of this session was explaining what those words meant, and those were only like a quarter of the words. So, and someone said thanks so much. So cool. Any other questions from folks while we still have Claire and Eileen?
Not to like fixate on this dashboard question, but just Jazz, as I was thinking about your question, you know, Brad's right. You can build a dashboard anywhere. And I think it kind of depends, like, are you looking for something where data is getting piped in real time? Because then, yeah, you're definitely talking about like a lot of money, or are you talking about something that you're maintaining yourself? And I guess what I would say, I have worked on a lot of campaigns where we've been like, oh, we need a dashboard. We're gonna have a dashboard. What you don't want is to create something that is so much work and is so complicated that you're not going to keep it up to date, because then it's not useful. So it's always kind of a tension. I have worked with plenty of people who think that more data is the thing that they need, and really that's not the thing that they need. So, you know, I think there's always a balance in being intentional about how much data you're collecting, how frequently, because you don't want to drown in it, and, you know, you don't want to just kind of give up on it because it's too much.
Amen to that. I'm just like, yeah.
So many times.
That's so real. I'm just gonna click answer live over here.
I'm just gonna share our emails again on the screen. So if people want to ask us specifically about dashboards, I think we both have experience building them. It's every organization I've worked at where we've decided to invest in building out like dashboards for our fundraising ads, dashboards for our acquisition ads, dashboards for our voter contact ads. Like, it is a huge, expensive, nightmarish process. And it really is extremely dependent on how what your organization's philosophy is around ad buying and the ways and places where you're buying ads. So there's really not like a best practice, I don't think.
Yeah. And if you're watching this on one of the 3 other places that this has been broadcast to, there are those emails there, and you can always email support@Center for Digital Strategy. We'll normally get back to you within a business day, often on weekends as well. On weekends, that is typically me emailing you back. Just checking, keeping the trains running. So I want to make sure folks, you know, all of us working in the social impact space, we are too tired, and when, you know, we kind of need a thing, we need it. And I would encourage you not to work on weekends, but here we are. There's a world
Any
on
more
fire.
questions?
No more questions yet. So yeah, I think we might call it good there. Thank you so much for folks who have joined. If you throw in a quick question in, you can follow up in the comments across the many platforms where this has been shared. And we'll make sure also, wherever you're watching this, follow up in the comments and let us know if you have questions, and we'll get back to you and answer those. So thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of you in the course in a couple of weeks. And if not, we got a bunch more courses coming your way, and an email strategy summit coming in July. Yeah, July. I was trying to figure out what month it is. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.